What's up, everybody? Welcome on Into One Soccer today here on onesoccer.ca. Andy Petrillo, Oliver Platt, Jordan Wilson, and Mr. Gareth Wheeler. Guys, I am really excited for this week. These shows, they're fun, but I always love it when we go back in studio, and that's what's going to happen. Oh, are we? Ollie.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, guys, if you're going to do something like that, we have to coordinate and choreograph before we go to air.
We need to plan this.
Look better than they did. We were all right, Wheels. We got.
Can you pat your head and rub your... We digress, gentlemen. What I was trying to say, and I don't know if I want to say it anymore, is that I'm really excited to see you guys in studio on November 17th. I take that back. I don't know if I want to see you in person, but really excited. Obviously, CONCACAF Nations League for the men are going to get back underway here, and we have Canada taking on Jamaica in the quarterfinals. We know whoever wins this two-leg fair will get a berth into Copa America. So Jamaica, they have released their 24-man squad on the weekend. Ollie, your reactions to the players named, and obviously what kind of problems do you think they can pose for the Canadians, which I love this calligraphy. I love this release, my friends.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too. Like it's a bit like Canada in some ways. There's some big names, some players that you're definitely worried about, I think, and have to account for. And then there's some clear weaknesses as well in this Jamaica squad. So kind of a similar type of mix. Obviously, you have to start with that forward group, like the front four that they can play with Bailey and Gray, Mikel Antonio, Bobby De Cordova-Reeds. Like these are all top level players who can cause you major problems. Antonio in particular, I think sometimes Gray and Bailey can be a little bit inconsistent for me as talented as they are. Antonio is just a top player. And even when the team is not going, he's capable of causing you problems individually on his own. So that's going to be a big headache for Canada. A Canada team that hasn't defended well recently, has had some problems with that higher caliber of talent. And they're going up against basically, Premier League players. Gray's not there anymore, but all players who have played regularly in the Premier League in recent seasons. So that's going to be a big test. But then you look at the other side of the coin, which I think is some of the other areas of the team, and the midfield in particular, central midfields, they really struggle for the same kind of quality. Daniel Johnson plays in the Championship on a regular basis, but he's another player who I think is better playing a bit further forward. He's a more attack-minded player. And then beyond that, you look at Latabodiere, plays a lot in central midfield for them, but he's a right back for his club. Phillips plays in the Jamaican League. Anderson and Russell are both relatively young players in League One in the third tier in England. So that is an area where, a bit like Canada, maybe at centre back, they just don't have nearly as much depth and quality as they do in other positions. So I think with Jamaica, it's always about kind of trying to deal with their strengths as much as you can and then exploiting some of the weaknesses that do exist.
Jordan, how are you feeling about Jamaica?
Yeah, I feel like they're a bit of a team that if their players show up to play and their big dogs come out, that it could be a test, right? But I also think for Canada, it's always tough playing those games that you should win, or you feel as if, I know they're playing in Jamaica, but a team that you feel like you should dominate, right? If it doesn't go your way. So I think this will be a huge test for them to start well. I think obviously playing Japan, that was a stronger side, but Canada didn't start well and kind of just shot themselves in the foot and then was playing catch up and then just could never really catch up in the game. Can't really do that when you go to Independence Park and play Jamaica. Yeah, there are the Baileys and Antonios and Grays and those players that can be an X factor for Jamaica. But I think if you go with energy and you really nullify their strengths from the beginning, they're not really going to go put up a match and want to go and fight. Like, I'm not going to say that playing for the Jamaican team is them on vacation, but I'm saying that when you play at such a high level like they do, if you make this game a bit difficult and physical for them from the beginning, it could just be a tall order. And I don't see Jamaica coming back from it. But it's all about the start for Canada. If they could do well and come out the blocks swinging, come out the blocks fast, then it could be a result for them.
How you feeling, Wheels?
They're coming along. They're moving in the right direction. 5 Premier League players in this Jamaica side. So clearly there's some talent. And Ollie was mentioning a lot of the players that play in the lower divisions of English football in the League Championship and League One. I mean, they're littered across their entire squad. Stoke, Coventry, Barnsley, Sheffield Wednesday, Charlton, Rotherham, Oxford. Like, the thing is, these players are playing and they're playing competitive football. The colder weather up here in Canada is not going to bother them. They have 12 dual nationals, 12 players who were born in the UK who are now playing for this Jamaican national team. This was a clear thought process. It's how they wanted to build this team out. They still have some decent players that were born in Jamaica that have gone on and are still making noise across Europe. Shamar Nicholson, we didn't mention him. He's their leading goal scorer with 11. You saw this team at the Gold Cup. I thought that they played a really strong opening match of that tournament against the United States. All the big dogs were there and ended up being completely unclassed and torn apart by Mexico because Mexico were much more well organized in that game. Heimer Hallgrimsson's still working on building this team on what it's actually going to look like in terms of how to get the most out of this very talented group. That is the big question for me. Where is Canada at right now under Mauro Biello in terms of refining the way that they want to play? Or does he go back to the well and maybe not play as much of a lower block? Something that he was adamant on trying to maybe change from the way that Herdman played. But does he go back with some of these familiar faces that have come into this camp? Like, can Canada be a better team than this Jamaican side? Talent, you can make the argument Jamaica might have more, or it's a wash, or somewhere close. But Canada's advantage over the course of the last little bit, where they've had a little bit more success than Jamaica, is playing as a team. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of reference points for Canadian fans would be the Canada 4-0 when they made it official and punched their World Cup ticket. Well, only 2 starters have really a chance of playing from that team that day. I mean, it was really a second or third Jamaican team, and that's their goalkeeper Andre Blake and the defender Lee. Other than that, there's not too much there. So it's been a side of great change. You got a lot of talent, and Canada, especially in this first leg, needs to be able to control this game and keep it absolutely manageable.
Yeah, a lot on the line, obviously, with these 2 games against Jamaica. Worth noting that Jamaica is on a 5-game unbeaten streak. That last loss came in the semifinal at the Gold Cup at the hands of the Mexicans, who went on to win the Gold Cup edition for 2023. So this is a team that's also just kind of used to being on the score sheet, a team that's used to being in the game. And I know it was a friendly, and we know it was against Japan, but I think a lot of people are just a little bit nervous to see how the Canadians will bounce back and respond. So that first game will go November 17th. We'll get you started right here on One Soccer, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. There's already been a bit of a change to the roster, gentlemen. In the last window when they did play Jamaica, Lucas Cavallini wasn't called up. He was called up this time, but it turns out that he's going to remain with his team now to continue rehabbing an injury. And Ollie Jason Russell-Rowe has received the call up to replace him. What do you make of that? Do you think he'll see much playing time, or how does that just kind of change things for Mauro Biello?
I don't think it changes things too much, to be honest. I thought there could have been a role for Cavallini, off the bench, maybe late in games. He's the only real striker Canada have who can play consistently with his back to goal, hold the ball up, relieve pressure, get them out of their own half a little bit at times. I suspect the replacement of Jason Russell-Rowe is a promising young player. Hopefully he has a future with Canada. But I suspect that's maybe just bringing in a player who's already in North America, doesn't have to travel as far as bringing someone over from Europe to be kind of the 23rd guy on the roster. So we'll see. I wouldn't expect him to play with the other options Canada have up front, but he's one for the future for the team to get a closer look at.
Do you think they miss anything, Jordan, with a Lucas Cavallini, who we know oftentimes, too, if you bring that kind of body off the bench, I mean, he likes to play what you call bully ball, and sometimes that can be very beneficial for a team, but he just clearly hasn't been healthy.
Yeah, he hasn't. And bully ball is probably what you might need in the first leg, maybe even the second leg as well for Canada, the last 20 minutes. And he's good for pressuring, holding on the ball, as Ollie said, and definitely a yellow card I would expect from him as well. But look, Russell-Rowe, I think in terms of longevity, is a player that Canada we're looking at and keeping an eye on because he does have some quality. But is this his time? Probably not. So, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, Cavallini, by the way, was a little bit of a surprise recall, I think, to a lot of people. He's predominantly played off the bench, limited minutes for his club side. He has 1 goal and he scored an own goal as well. It's not the most glowing record. And it's a player that has always left it on the line for Canada, always been fully committed. But when he's not form and he's not fit, it never seemed like he was going to be the answer here as well. But what's interesting is a player like Ike Ugbo has fallen off the face of the earth for this Canadian team. Russell-Rowe's not playing a whole lot of football, albeit on a very good Columbus team. So I think that kind of, if you're projecting and looking towards the future, there's some roles to be earned in terms of attacking players, especially if you play a number 9 or more of a central striker role. Tough to get into the wings of this team, but I still think there's some opportunity alongside the likes of David and Laren up top.